Welcome in to another video with A Spiral. We're continuing on with the preseason rankings for each NFL division. Moving from the AFC to the NFC, we're going to move into the NFC South, staying down in the southern region. The Atlanta Falcons, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Carolina Panthers, and the New Orleans Saints. We're going to be talking about each team, positives, negatives, coming up with a ranking at the end, along with any big storylines from each team going into this season and things that I think will be big talking points. Things that you'll hear on the news, things that you'll hear on the broadcasts of NFL games, constant talking points. We're going to start with the Atlanta Falcons, who I think is the most talking point prime team in this division, specifically because of what their depth chart is going to look like going into next season. And what I'm talking about specifically is their quarterback situation with Michael Penix and Tua Tagovailoa. So here's the big thing about this situation. Penix is coming off of what I believe is his third ACL tear and knee surgery. He is playing in the practicing, so he is back, but coming off of a third ACL tear of a quarterback who is already considered an injury-prone quarterback, who already isn't very mobile, and his big thing is being an accurate gunslinger, kind of throw the ball downfield, get it to his guys. The mobility isn't going to get worse, but it was never good in the first place, and you were hoping maybe that it would get better based on him playing, but it's not going to with this ACL. And Tua coming over from the Dolphins, I believe that this quarterback situation, you can either start Tua and basically say you failed on Penix if he is healthy enough to play, and hope that Tua is worth, starting over your 11th, 8th, whatever Penix was pick, and just run with Tua, which Stefanski has always been a turret. If you consider like what a turret is, it's a stand in the pocket, throw the ball like with timing and consistency and accuracy. That is Tua, but he's not going to make super big downfield throws. He likes playing with accuracy. He's also not very mobile. So there's two situations. You start Tua, you basically are punting on Penix if he is healthy. This is the thing, is if he is healthy enough to play. And then if you have to bench Tua and go to Penix, Penix obviously wasn't good enough in the preseason, and you're now having to switch to him because Tua was so bad. They might be in contention for a a top 5 pick if they're doing that bad and Penix is looking so much worse than Tua and Tua is playing bad. The one good thing about this team is their top of the line players, Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan, are insane. They're some of the best at their position. I think Bijan is a top 5 running back. I think Drake London's top 15 and probably will get into the top 10 after this season. And Kyle Pitts, when he is a primary utilization in an offense, which I think with Stefanski he can be. We saw how Njoku was, and we saw how they used Fannin as well last year. I think Kyle Pitts could be in for a big season, but I worry that after Drake London, you have Dotson and Zacchaeus as your next two guys. They drafted Zechariah Branch, but I think he is very much a gadget trick pony kind of player, and I don't know how. Like, we've really never seen that kind of player with Stefanski, at least not utilized very well. So I wonder if they can figure out a way to do that. I do like their offensive line. It is pretty good. I like Chris Lindstrom. The only problem with this offensive line is they run one scheme and it's wide zone. I've heard multiple other people talk about this. It is their offense has been a wide zone scheme offense for the longest time. All of their players are that, and now they've brought in some guys who aren't that, like keep the quarterbacks healthy, which they're both injury prone, which I forgot to even mention about Tua. You're taking Penix, who is an injury prone quarterback, and Tua, who is also an injury prone quarterback, and putting them in and hoping one of them comes out and is healthy for a whole season. Maybe the whole thing is, hey, if one of them gets hurt, the other one's probably good for about the same amount of games. Hopefully we make it to the playoffs. I don't know. And their defense is, I would say, pretty good, but they have some questionable position groups, specifically linebackers. I really like Jalen Walker, but he plays more of a rush end. I do like their DB room, but we're hoping that Avion Terrell can take a step and Mike Hughes can maybe move outside because I really don't think Billy Bowman's that good. And AJ Terrell is very good. Their safety duo is great in Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts. So I do think this defense has some untapped potential, but they've had untapped potential for what feels like a few years, and it just keeps not being very good. And I wonder if that is because of their linebackers, specifically the insides. I'm hoping that Jalen Walker can take a big step for this team, as well as James Pierce, maybe not, you know, trying to kill an ex girlfriend with a car, allegedly. Um, but yeah, no, this team is a quarterback injury away from being on a second string quarterback that might just be the same player and then they're injured. You hope not, you don't assume for it. I do think that if you get what Michael Penix was his last year at Washington, you could be in for a very, very good offense as long as everyone stays healthy. Again, after Drake London, their wide receiver room looks a little suspect, but I think that this team could finish pretty well. And I'll come to where I have them and I'll explain how I came to that final answer. Moving on to the next team in the NFC South, the Carolina Panthers. Big storyline for this team. Is Bryce Young the guy? He is going on his fourth year of his deal. They have not picked up his fifth year yet, or they're planning on it, something along those lines. It really comes down to, do you sign him to his fifth year and hope that he shows something and then sign him to a deal? Or do you say, hey, we'll sign you for a smaller deal and skip the fifth year option, but it's not going to be a very big deal. You haven't shown enough. He's small. He This last year, his pocket navigation and his playmaking ability got much better, but this team does not throw the ball at very high clip in comparison to other teams. And we saw that with how much Rico Dowdle got work, but we saw this team go from an insanely good rushing scheme to a very not good rushing scheme at the flip of a switch. And I think that was based on the defenses they were playing. I do think Chuba Hubbard is still okay, but I would like to see Jonathan Brooks step up and actually, be what he was drafted to be, which is a very good, explosive, fast running back. And I'm hoping that that comes to fruition. I love Tedoroa McMillan. He is a 1A dominant alpha wide receiver. Jalen Coker is a good slot guy. I think Leggett will end up being replaced by Chris Brazzell. And I actually like this wide receiver room with Leggett, Horn, and Mechie all behind if Brazzell does step up into the Leggett role. I also like their tight ends. They both block pretty well. They have good hands. This team I really like, but it really comes down to, is Bryce Young the guy? Their offensive line is going to be healthy next year, we hope. I really like Ike Ekwonu and Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. These three offensive linemen are exceptional. Monroe Freeling could step in and potentially be something great. They signed Rasheed Walker. This team's offense could be legitimately scary as a run game as long as this offensive line stays healthy and these tight ends and wide receivers block like how they should. And if Jonathan Brooks takes a step. So there's the positives. The negatives are, you have offensive linemen coming off of big injuries. Bryce Young has, well, made improvements, still looks uncomfortable in the pocket sometimes and has a lower escapability because of the physical limitations of his build and size. And moving to the defense, has been one of the worst defenses in the league for the last few years. I will say I love the moves they made this offseason. They signed Jalen Phillips, which you could say is an overpay if you're a anti-positional value guy. But I do like Jalen Phillips and Nick Scorton as edge rushers. I think they're both pretty good. Derek Brown is an exceptional defensive tackle. He's one of the best in the league. And I think that Princely Umanmielen can be a good designated pass rusher for this team. They did sign Devin Lloyd, which I thought was a huge signing. I think he's an exceptional linebacker, top 10 for me. And this DB room is pretty good. I really like Mike Jackson and JC Horn. I think they're both exceptional. I'm not well versed on Chow Smith Wade, but I like their safeties in Morgan Scott, and Zyke Wheatley is really good coming out of, I believe, LSU. Sorry, coming out of Penn State. I'm getting him mixed up with the LSU safety that went somewhat late in the draft as well. Brother is a big LSU fan, so he was talking up both Zyke Wheatley and the guy from LSU. And yeah, I mean, Will Lee the third, I thought he was pretty good coming out of A&M this year, and so I'm hopeful that maybe he can get a start. Here's the thing about this team. They have a lot of talent that I really like. It just seems like it's either untapped or might be capped out at what is, oh, I like them. I think they're pretty good. And the problem with it is the Panthers have, the last few years up until this year, had such low expectations that you're like, oh, they're getting better. We're still sitting at those expectations of a team that is 4 wins, 5 wins, 4 wins, however many wins. They just made the playoffs last year. If they don't make the playoffs again and they look bad, this could be a really bad situation, and Bryce Young could be getting the boot. Like, that is what it comes down to. So a big storyline will be, how does this offense work around Bryce Young, and do they pass the ball more? Does Jonathan Brooks step up into that role that he was drafted to be? And does this defense finally get a backbone in the sense of being able to stop the run? With Derrick Brown off the field, they're probably the worst run defending team in the NFL over the last few years. And with Derrick Brown, you just run away from him, unfortunately, and it was the same. That's why they went out and got Devin Lloyd. That's why they signed Jalen Phillips. Like, these guys are supposed to fix that problem. And I do like this team, but they are going to have an exceptionally hard schedule, finishing first in this division and being one of the worst divisions in the league. So I do believe that they might, while they may look better, they will struggle more. So I'll show you where I have them ranked at the end of this video. Moving on to the next team, in the New Orleans Saints. Biggest storyline for this team is, can their players stay healthy? Tyler Shough, consistently injured through college. Travis Etienne has dealt with foot injuries and knee injuries and ankle injuries. Chris Olave, concussion and blood clots. Jordan Tyson, already dealing with a hamstring injury coming out of college and still may not be healthy. And, Eric McCoy, banged up. Cesar Ruiz, I believe, has been banged up. I love their tackles. Calvin Banks and Taliese Fuaga. Oh, some of the best young tackles in the league. I think they have two stalwarts at tackle for a long time, and if they can keep them wild, they'll be good at tackle. But their offense really comes down to, can they still stay healthy? Here's the thing, though. I think Tyler Shough is a really good quarterback, and I think that Kellen Moore knows how to play up-tempo offense and give your quarterback easy button stuff, with two of the top 25, 30 receivers, depending on how you think of Olave and Tyson. I think they're both very exceptional. You can go back and watch the wide receiver rankings video. The problem is they're both injury prone. They miss games. Olave actually played the most games of his career so far last year prior to getting that blood clot. But Tyson, when he's on the field and healthy, man, he's explosive. He's awesome, but he is hurt. Moving on to this defense. I really like this defense. I think that they are going to be scary. Cameron Jordan's still doing it, man. He's great. I like the Caden Ellis pickup from Atlanta. I thought he was great last year for Atlanta. I'm surprised they didn't keep him. Pete Werner is another good inside linebacker, and Chase Young has really stepped up into becoming a top 15 edge rusher in the NFL. Like, he is maybe not edge rusher, edge defender, because he's so good in the run defense, but he's really started to pick it up, having his first double-digit sack season. I think it will just continue with having Caden Ellis be a blitzer. I like Carl Granderson, but I think that he is an okay backup. I do like Anthony Jennings. I like that signing for them. And I like their DB room in Kool-Aid McKinstry, Justin Reed, Julian Blackman, Quincy Riley. Like, I really like a lot of these guys. Devin Godshaw, who's a big take up room in the middle. I really like the Christian Miller pickup. And Brian Bresee, I thought did a little better last year, but I'm still not sure if he is going to be what they ended up drafting him to be, which is kind of like supposed to be a Cam Jordan replacement. But overall, I really like this team. I really think that they can step it up. They paid Travis Etienne. Sorry, they paid Travis Etienne Jr. a bag, and I'm not a huge fan of it, but I think it'll work out because I like his fit in the Kellen Moore scheme. He's a great receiver out of the backfield, and he's really good on outside runs, which I believe is Kellen Moore's like go-to thing. Alvin Kamara, he's been one of my favorite players since he came out of Tennessee. He's getting old, and I think he might be on his last legs. More of a wide receiver for this offense, kind of a change up back. I don't think he's going to be getting a ton of reps. And then Devin Neal can't stay healthy, and same with Kendre Miller. They both can't stay healthy. I think Bryce Lance is an interesting pickup, and I think that they are going to use him pretty well on deep balls. I like the Juwan Johnson and the Noah Fant pickup, like or duo at tight end, and Oscar Delp may get some like they may be rotating these tight ends because where I do like Juwan Johnson, he's more of a big slot, and I think they're going to be running more two tight end sets regardless, which will just take Devon Vele and any other wide receiver off and just have Olave and Tyson, which will be great for you if you have either of them in fantasy. Two wide receiver sets with two tight ends. Typically, the ball goes to wide receivers more often. They have heavier boxes, less over the top coverage, less guys to beat after making it downfield and catching the ball. So I think this team has a very good outlook, especially finishing at what I believe is third in the division, fourth in division last year. So they're going to have an easier schedule than the other three teams, which I think can benefit them. And I will tell you where I rank them at the end of this video. Moving on to the final team in the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The biggest storyline right now is Baker Mayfield and his contract. Are they going to extend him or not? Is he going to be healthy for this whole year or not? Like, it's really kind of one of those things where I really like him. I think he's, fantastic for what he is, which is a gamer. He makes dumb mistakes. He throws turnover worthy balls, but he's fun to watch, and he's the kind of quarterback that your team wants to play for, which says something. He puts his body on the line every game. He's not going to sit out because of some like little nagging injury, even though sometimes I think he should. But he's a baller. He's a gamer. He can bring his team to wins, and I think he can be a starting quarterback on what could be a Super Bowl team. Not saying this team, I'm saying in general. If he was on a Super Bowl team, he could be a starting quarterback that could win you a game. But he could also be the reason you lose it because of those turnover-worthy plays. His pocket awareness is good, but what he does after he is aware of what's going on is not good. He kind of turtles and just sprints forward and hope that he can break through a gap instead of stepping and keeping his eyes downfield. But I'm really intrigued to see what they do with these wide receivers. Chris Godwin, hopefully going to be healthy. When he's healthy, he's a reception machine over the middle, sit down in zones. Emeka Egbuka had a huge start last year and finished off kind of cold, but if you look at his overall body of work, it was a really good rookie season. Jalen McMillan, hopefully going to be healthy this year. He had that really weird neck injury after getting undercut on a jump ball in the preseason, I believe. And Tez Johnson, Ted Hurst, and Cameron Johnson all could potentially have roles in this offense. I think Ted Hurst could be a big X receiver to kind of fill in for what Mike Evans left. Not going to be Mike Evans, but could potentially fill in. And then I like the Kenny Gainwell pickup. He's a great receiving back. We saw him lead the Pittsburgh Steelers in receiving last year, or at least maybe targets. I don't know. It was something kind of crazy. And then this offensive line I think is really good. Tristan Wirfs is a top 5 tackle in the league. Luke Goedeke is a great tackle. I like Graham Barton at center. When he had to move out to help out with some injuries, it was putting a lot of weight on him. And these guards are okay, but this offensive line as a whole, I think, is quite a good offensive line. Where I move on to the defense, you got some high quality players at each level. Vita Vea, Ruben Bain on the defensive line, exceptional. In the middle of your linebacker position, Alex Anzalone and Christian Roseboom, man, that is a real step down from what you've had at linebacker for the last few years. I really worry about that for this team, and maybe Josiah Trotter is that like step in and replace, but I worry about it. I like and Antoine Winfield Jr. is an exceptional safety, one of the best in the league when healthy. And I worry about these corners. Benjamin Morrison, don't really know who he is. Did he play much last year? Okay, so he was a rookie last year. It does not seem like he played very much, and he's dealing with an injury right now, questionable. Who knows? I don't know him very well. I like Tyke Smith. Like these safeties are good. Zion McCollum had a great, I believe, rookie year, and then last year didn't do too good, or had a great, third, second year, whatever it was. Last year had a fall off, so you hope that he can get back to what he was. And Jacob Parrish is a good nickelback. Look at his food. And I really like Keontae Scott. I loved that pickup for them in the draft. I think Ruben Bain, if I really think he is that dude, and I think it's going to help with their pass rush. And who knows, maybe this defense with Todd Bowles, you know, having a potential 1A pass rusher in Ruben Bain turns this defense into what it was when Brady was there with the Super Bowl run. But my question is Todd Bowles past his prime for coaching and is just a begrudging old man who doesn't listen to statistics and analytics and just makes bad decisions and kind of screws over his team, especially with timeouts. So this team, I think, can have a really high or a really low. Like I said, I like these defensive pieces, but the defense as a whole has not played exceptionally well recently. And the same thing can be said as an offense. Baker had that huge touchdown year, but regression to the mean of a player's like typical is going to happen, and maybe that gets better this year if he's not injured, like it seemed like last year. One player I didn't even talk about is Bucky. I like Bucky. I like what he is, but man, you really start to worry about this shoulder injury thing and how he's maybe going to be healthy or maybe not. He'll play at some point this year. Like I don't know what to make of that as a guy who watches football and sees how much damage a running back takes. He's a slighter build guy, great receiving, great, with the ball in his hands in space, but for a running back, you have to be able to take the hits. And it seems like right now he is not able to take these hits. So I worry that this may cause problems for him this season, especially if he's already dealing with it and going into the season with it. Going over each of these teams, listed out the positives and negatives of each team. And I really think that the best team in this division is going to be the Saints. I like their defense. I think their offense has a great offensive mind in Kellen Moore. I think that their quarterback situation, that's a storyline that I didn't even mention is Shuck the guy? And I think he is. I really do. And I think that they're just having the fourth place schedule in this division is going to benefit them exceptionally. And we've seen how close this division comes down to. They could squeak it out with basically the exact same record they had last year. In second place, I am going to have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do think Baker is the best quarterback in this division. I think that is something to be said. I worry about Bulls, but I do think Bain is worth something. And I like, their players, Vita Vea, Bain, Antoine Winfield, like they have the star power on defense. It really comes down to is Bulls going to screw them over and lose them games just with his decision making. Here at number 3, this is really tough for me because I'm kind of like, these teams are so close, but I'm kind of thinking that the Panthers will finish third. You hope that they take that next step in their defense with the acquisitions they made in the offseason. Bryce Young takes that next step. I think that they will do that. And I come down to 4 being the Atlanta Falcons because their defense hasn't put it together. I don't think they made exceptional improvements to the team on defense specifically. And I worry about their quarterback play. I worry that Michael Penix, Tua Tagovailoa, as an aggregate quarterback room, whatever ends up being on the field is not going to be better than any of the other quarterbacking that gets played in this division. I just don't think that it will happen. I wasn't a fan of the Michael Penix pick when it happened. I am not a fan of Tua in the sense of what he should be now. I was a big fan of him coming out of college, but his fluky injury, head injuries, hip injury, ankles, like all the weird things he has, I just do not think that he should even be playing in the NFL, especially with his concussions that he's had. And I don't think he's a very good quarterback when it comes to making plays anymore. I thought he was at Alabama, but there is something to be said with playing on the team with the best players almost every year. That it's kind of like how the Ohio State quarterback thing is. They don't have to be very good in college, and then they come to the NFL and are struggling. Point in case, potentially CJ Stroud if he doesn't pick it up this year. Final rankings for this NFC South divisional ranking video. New Orleans Saints 1, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2, Carolina Panthers 3, and Atlanta Falcons 4. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. This division is super close, like I said. I think you could easily say any team could be number 1 and any team could be number 4. And I honestly would probably say, yeah, I understand that. I probably would agree if you were convincing enough or you gave me a specific stat or whatever. This division is going to be competitive in the sense that they're all bad. And it's going to come down to the last few games. And I'm ready to see what happens. But that's just the opinion of a ball knower. See you later.